Start with the second day of the weekend batch, and I'll create a new Java project called day 2. Hold on. Yeah. So what we saw yesterday was, the first thing was how to configure Selenium. Okay, Selenium is never installed, it is configured in your workspace. You need to download the jar files from the website of Selenium, and you need to put those jar files in your project. How do you put them? Whenever you make a new project, you need to put the jar files out there. Okay, so you right click over here, go to the properties, go to Java build path under libraries, and click on add external jars, and go to the location where you have downloaded the jar files. For example, I have them out here. Include the jar files in your Eclipse. Fine. Once you have included the jar files will reflect under the reference library section. Okay. Now what you need to do is that you need to go to the source folder and create a new class and start working with Selenium. So as I told you yesterday, you need to create the classes of the objects of the inbuilt classes inside Selenium, like Firefox driver was there, Internet Explorer driver, Chromedriver. Fine. Now before I move further on, okay, let's discuss the concepts of objects again. Fine. For example, I make a class called a simple class like car. Okay, and I create properties inside it. I give properties to the car class. Okay, 1 minute. I'll increase the font. Okay, I create the object of the car class. I give a variable name and a function, public void start, in this, which prints system.out.println starting the car and the name of the car. Okay, so this is the function start, which simply prints starting the car and the name of the car which it is going to start. Fine. And suppose I make a new class called test. In this test class, I create the object of the car class like this: car C1 equals to new car, car C2 equals to new car, and car C3 equals to new car. I give all the three cars their names, that is C1 dot name equals to say A, C2 dot name equals to B, and C3 dot name equals to C. Fine. And you call the function start. You write C1 dot start and C2 dot start. This was practically what we did yesterday as well. Fine. Now what will happen in the memory? Three objects will be created. C1, C2 and C3 will be references to three objects. Okay, and each object will have a copy of name and start function. It will be something like this, that in the memory you will have three objects. Each object will have the name property and the start function. Name property, start function, name property, start function. Okay, so when you call C1 dot start, this start function, when it's called, in the start function I am printing the name of the car, so it will print the name of C1. Similarly C2 and C3. So when you run this code, the main function, it prints starting car A, B and C. Okay, now once it's done, Okay. Now suppose the car has got another property called wheels. Int wheels. Okay, so I give the wheel value as well. I write c1 dot wheels equals to 4, c2 dot wheels, and c3 dot wheels are 4. So what will happen? The wheels variable will be having a copy which is there inside every object. But now we know that every car has got 4 wheels. Just taking a generic assumption, we know that every car has 4 wheels. So what we do is that since these wheels property, number of wheels, are common for all the objects, okay, the properties which are common for all the objects, okay, we don't keep them inside objects, we keep them at a single memory location, and all the objects can access that particular memory location, right? So what we do is that we make that property static. Static means it's not the part of the object basically. Okay, so if I make this static, the wheels property will no longer remain the part of the object, and you see that you get a yellow warning sign over here. The warning sign tells you that this is a static variable, do not try to access it with the object because it is not the property of the object. So you do not access static objects like this. Sorry, static properties. I can just write car dot wheels equals to 4, the name of the class, dot the static stuff equals to 4. This means that number of wheels inside the car will be 4. Every car object which will be created will be having 4 wheels. Okay, so this is static. Static is something which can be accessed without creating the object of the class. You can directly write class name dot static stuff. So static can be accessed directly. But in case you want to access other properties, these are non-static properties. This is known as non-static. Non-static has to be accessed with the help of the object of that particular class. If I have to access the start function, okay, I have to create the object. If I have to access the name variable, I have to create object. But if I make a function like this, public static, say wash, okay, this is a static function. For this function will be common for all the cars. It's not the part of the object of the car class. You can directly call it like this, car dot wash. So static is something which can be called directly, and non-static is something which has to be called with the help by creating the objects of the class. Right? So this is the difference between difference in a very superficial way. That static properties, they can be accessed directly with the class name dot the static property. The non-static property has to be accessed by creating the object of the class. Okay, fine. Similarly, when I create a class called Fire or Selenium drivers, right? Now in this, if I create the object of Firefox driver class, if I write Firefox driver 1 equals to new Firefox driver 1, fine. So what will happen is that, sorry, Firefox driver. So if I create the object and I write driver 1 dot, I get all the non-static properties of this particular class. Okay, but if I write Firefox driver dot, I will get all the static properties. This is the class name dot the variable name. But if I create the object and if I write object name dot, you will get these properties. Similarly, there is an Internet Explorer driver. You can write Internet Explorer driver 2 equals to new Internet Explorer driver, and you basically import this. After that, you create the object of Chromedriver. driver3 equals to new Chromedriver, and we create the object of Chromedriver as well. Fine. So similarly, this Internet Explorer driver object will also have set of functions inside it. Okay, and the Internet Explorer driver class, this is an inbuilt class inside Selenium. This class is present somewhere inside the jar files of Selenium. Okay, you are using that class. So when I write Internet Explorer driver dot, I get the static functions or static things present in this class. Similarly, the Chromedriver. If I write Chromedriver dot, there is no static thing inside it. Everything is non-static. So driver dot, you will get, these are the non-static properties which I am accessing through the object. Now every object, driver1, driver2 and driver3, this signifies a different class. Driver1 signifies Firefox driver, driver2 signifies Internet Explorer driver, driver3 signifies Chromedriver. Fine. But how can I come to know what are the functions present in these three classes? Suppose tomorrow new driver comes up, Opera driver. Then how will I come to know what are the functions present in that Opera driver and what is the feature? And I have a big headache of maintaining the list of functions in my mind as well, that which function does what, right? You're getting my point, right? The problem, first try to understand the problem. I have got one class per browser. In Selenium, talking in a very rough terms, we have one class per browser. You create the object of that class and use the properties of that object to work with the browser. But I have a headache that the more the number of browsers Selenium will be supporting tomorrow, okay, the more the number of classes will be there, and it will be my headache to understand everything, that what feature is present in what class. Fine. So to solve this issue, we have the concept of interfaces in Java. Under object-oriented programming, we have the concept of interfaces. Fine. I'll tell you what interfaces are, then I'll come back to these classes and I'll work with them. I'll tell you how to work with IE, Chrome and all everything. Okay. So for learning what an interface is, suppose I make a new interface. Okay. Select the example as a new interface. Alright. And I make an interface called, say, a generic interface called say, so just a minute, let me think. A good example would be about an interface called, say, animal. Okay, animal is an interface in Java. So what is an interface? Interface is something in which you declare what your system is going to do. If you have any doubts while watching this, okay, in the training, you can move your mouse to the top of the window. Okay, there will be a menu coming up and you can mute or unmute yourself and ask questions. You can also click on the chat menu and you can ask questions to chat. Fine. So don't be afraid to ask questions. You can be confused at times. So there is an interface called animal. Now inside the animal interface, you have a function called public void, say, move. Then a function called public void eat. Very simple interface. Now what an interface contains, it contains functions, but it will not describe those functions. It will not have the function bodies. For example, in my car class, I had a function called start and I had a function body which was telling me what the car class is supposed to do. Fine. So, sorry, what the start function is supposed to do, it was telling me, right? So now, similarly in the animal interface, what is having it's having simple function names. The interface is like you can say it's like a a la carte menu. When you go to your restaurant, fine, you will see that there is a menu card over there. When you look at that, you order your dish, you read the dish, fine, this is available over here, give me this, give me this. You place your order according to the a la carte menu. Now, similarly, the interface in Java is like that. It tells you what your application is supposed to do. Suppose my application is about animals. So just by reading this interface, I will come to know what my application is supposed to do. It move, eat, and all a lot of other stuff. Similarly, in Selenium, okay, if you open Google and just a minute, if you go to the Selenium site, if you go to the Selenium site and you look at the Java docs over here. Java docs is nothing but the documentation for Selenium. If you look at the Java docs, then you will observe that these are the classes available. Fine, in Selenium these are the classes available, and whatever is there in italics, okay, is an interface. Fine. For example, mouse over here is an interface. It's written in italics. If you click on it, you will get the interface mouse, and these are the features of the interface. So these are the mouse features. Similarly, if you look carefully, everybody has heard about WebDriver. Fine, this is WebDriver. WebDriver is an inbuilt interface inside Selenium API. It's just got the method declarations. If you look at the WebDriver interface, it's got these methods. Close will close the function. Find element, it will find an element of any object on your web page. Fine. Get current URL, get page source, get title, get window handle, navigate, quit. These are the functions which are present in the WebDriver interface. Okay. This interface is similar to the interface we created here, interface animal. Okay, now what this interface animal does, how is it useful to us, right? Suppose I create a new class called TestAnimal. Can I create the object of animal class? Can I write animal A equals to new animal? No, you cannot. In Java, you cannot create the objects of interface. Always remember the rule that you cannot create objects of interface. So why is interface useful then? If I cannot create the object of animal interface, how am I going to use it? Moreover, the interface has got no method bodies. Fine. So interfaces are supposed to be implemented in Java language. For example, I make a new class called say dog. Right. So dog is an animal. So what will dog do? It will implement the animal interface. You write like this: implements animal. As soon as you write implements animal out here, what it does is, the thing is that you see an error out here immediately. You get an error because if a class is implementing an interface, it's mandatory for that class to implement all the functions, abstract functions. These are abstract, these are incomplete functions. That class has to implement both the functions. So you move your mouse over the error and you select the option add unimplemented methods, and in the override function you write system.out.println move, and then you write system.out.println keep. Okay, now what is this @override sign? You can remove it, it's not mandatory to keep this, but this thing tells you that these functions are being implemented from the animal interface. Okay. If I skip one of these functions, if I don't keep, I'll get an error immediately. So if a class is implementing an interface, it's supposed to implement all the functions of that interface. Similarly, if I create a new class called bird and I write implements animal, because bird is an animal, and you add the unimplemented functions, you will have to again implement both the functions. I'll write bird moving and bird eating. Similarly over here, out here, okay, the question being asked is why we didn't implement WebDriver in Selenium driver classes. Okay, I'll tell you about the implementation of the WebDriver. I'll tell you about it. I'll come over to WebDriver. Fine. Just understand this thing right now. So what I did was I created one animal class which are implementing this particular interface. Okay, fine. Now this gives our application a pattern. Suppose I come tomorrow in this whole project and I see that I know that dog and bird are the two classes which are implementing the animal interface. So automatically, without looking at those two classes, I will come to know that, right? Fine. So this is the good thing, that my application gets a structure. Suppose tomorrow one more animal comes up, say elephant. So that class will also have these two functions, move and eat. No matter how many classes I am going to add in this application, all the classes will follow this interface. So the function names will be same. Maybe the bird implements the movement in some other way and the dog class is implementing the move function in some other way. But I am not concerned about that. But I know that move and eat functions will be there in every class. Fine. Similarly, in WebDriver, this is the WebDriver interface and all these classes are the implementing classes. Android driver, Android WebDriver, Chromedriver, event firing, Firefox, remote WebDriver, Safari, iPhone. So all these classes, they are implementing this WebDriver interface. And this WebDriver interface gives you some generic functions for controlling the browser. So all those functions are present in these classes as well. Tomorrow if a new class gets added, say Opera driver, it will have the same set of functions which are described by the WebDriver interface. Okay, so question is, do these classes drivers? Firefox has got one or two functions, Chrome and all they don't have. Okay, all are implementing their own, the WebDriver interface. All follow the WebDriver interface. Okay, right. So all these functions over here, for example, I'll talk about a very simple example. A function called get. What this function does, it loads a new web page in the current browser window. Right. So if I go back to my code, Selenium drivers, then Firefox driver, if I write driver1 dot get, I will get this function. I can give the URL of the site over here. Always give the protocol, please don't forget the protocol. The get function will be there in Firefox driver 1. It will be there in IDE driver 2 as well, because all these are implementing the WebDriver interface. Okay, and the Chromedriver will also have the same. Okay, Fine. So the functions inside these classes will be same, but they will be like the functions will be implemented in a different way, but the names would be same. So I don't have to worry if I have to go to a URL using Firefox, IE or Chrome. The function name is same. You can just open the interface WebDriver and read the functions. Okay. Question being asked is writing @ override mandatory? No, it's not mandatory. This sign @ override, it's there just for people like you and me. When we look at this sign, we come to know that fine, this thing is being implemented from the WebDriver, from the animal interface. This is not a sign. Technically, this is known as annotation. In Java, this is known as annotation. We'll be studying a lot of other annotations as well as we proceed with the course. Right? In Junit TestNg, there are lots of annotations like this. It's not mandatory to write @ override. Okay, fine. Now, yesterday I told you about Firefox driver. You simply create the object and Firefox will start. Fine. I'll tell you about Chromedriver now, and then I'll come back to interfaces. Okay. I'll talk about Chromedriver example. If I create the object of Chromedriver, okay, if I just create the object of Firefox driver, what happens is that a blank Firefox window opens up. If I create, okay, question is, in the previous example, suppose bird class extends dog class and the new class extends. Amit, I will talk about that. That is actually inheritance. Okay, I am talking about interfaces right now. And whenever one class extends another class, there has to be a relationship. If the bird class is implementing the animal interface, there is a relationship called is a bird is a animal. So that's why it's implementing. Bird is a dog. That's not possible. So it cannot extend dog. Okay, first of all, suppose if we have a class extending it, I'll talk about those examples. Okay, I'm talking about interfaces right now. That is inheritance. Fine. So out here, Chromedriver example. Fine. So when you run this code, I get an error immediately. The error is, if you read the error says that the path to driver executable must be set by this property, webdriver.chrome.driver system property. Now what does this mean? Well, this simply means that, you know what, whosoever made Selenium, they made a special exe file for Chrome. Hold on. Go to Google and just type here chromedriver.exe from this link. No, just a minute. Just a minute. WebDriver. Yeah, this is the link. Just type WebDriver chrome.exe. You will get this link, chromium.org. Okay. Out here, they have specified. Let me get that URL from my local PC. I have that URL. Yeah, so this is the exe file link. I'll just give you the link as well, and I'll tell you what it means. I'm giving this link over WebEx to everybody. Okay. Now for Chromedriver, they have released various exe files depending on your operating system, Windows, Mac, Linux, and all and everything. So I have a Windows operating system, so you download Chromedriver server for Windows. This is the link. I've already downloaded it and I've extracted it over here in my C drive. Chromedriver. This is the chromedriver.exe file. Hold on. Right. This is chromedriver.exe file. Don't double click on it. It's not an executable file. You just have to keep it here. And it's not the executable file for Chrome. Make sure that the Chrome is already installed in your machine. Fine. What you need to do is that you need to write like this. System.set property. Give the key as webdriver.chrome.driver and the value as the path of this exe file, that is in C:\Chromedriver. You give the file name as chromedriver.exe. You have to set a system property to work with Chromedriver. That is system.set property webdriver.chrome.driver. The exe file for the WebDriver Chromedriver is over here. Make sure Chrome is installed. Okay. Now when you run this code, just have to keep it in the path. That's it, nothing else. So what will happen? Chrome will start like this. Similarly, there is an Internet Explorer driver exe as well, which you need to download from the same site. Okay, not from the same site, but a different site. And if you write over here driver.get the URL say bbc.com and you run this, you see in Chrome what happens is that in Eclipse, Chrome does all the logging and all everything. Okay, if you look at the output, this is the file where all the log files and all they are generated. Okay, Chromedriver, it generates a log file automatically. Okay, it's kept at this location. If you open that log file, you will see all the logs for the Chrome. Okay, this is quite technical, fine, but still I am telling you you can do it like this, and this is how you work with Chrome, fine. That's it. Okay, question is how the commands are triggered on browsers. As if we run .java file, how the controller browsers and how the command. This is through Selenium. That's what Selenium API is doing. Okay, that's what I told you in the very beginning, that in Selenium everything is inbuilt, just like QTP. You write the navigate function in QTP and the browser navigates. Inside this get function, there are some JavaScript commands which are eventually getting executed. So that's what the tool is doing. Okay, you just have to concentrate on the business logic. You need to just write your test cases, so you don't have the headache of actually navigating the browser, opening the browser, and also you don't have to do all that. All that has to be done by the tool. That's what the Selenium API is all about. Okay, Ashish. Fine. Inside it, the JavaScript commands are getting executed. The one like the one which I told you yesterday, right? Window.location command or something like that. That would be getting executed behind the scenes. So this is what the thing is. Everything in Selenium is inbuilt. You just need to understand the concepts. That is how to extract this stuff, how to work with it. Fine, right? Okay. So now let's come back to the inheritance example. Okay, this was the animal class having two functions, and bird and bird was one of the classes which was implementing the animal interface, and dog was one of the classes. Okay, now in test animal class I told you I cannot create the object of the animal interface because interfaces cannot be instantiated in Java. That means you cannot create the objects of interfaces in Java language. Fine. So what you do is you can create the object of dog class like this, dog d equals to new dog. Fine. You can write d dot eat, d dot move. Similarly, I can create the object of the bird class. I can write bird d equals to new bird. And that's what we do in Selenium as well. Different classes, different objects, but same functions. B dot eat and B dot move. Fine. When you run this code, it prints the output as dog eating, dog moving, and bird eating, bird moving. Fine. Now suppose the dog class, it implements one more function like this: public void bark. Fine. If I write system.out.println bark, dog barking. Okay. Now this function is not coming from the animal interface. It's not from the animal interface, and it is actually okay. Ashish, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. Okay. This bark is not coming from the animal interface, right? So when you write over here like this, d dot bark, you can call this function from the dog object. That's possible. Okay, fine. Now there is a special way. Generally, how do we create the objects? We create the objects by writing the class of the name equals to new class of the name. But what if I write like this? I can write animal A equals to new dog. So what I have done is the interface reference equals to the name of the class which is implementing the interface. You can also create the object like this. And what is the difference between this line and this line? The difference between these two lines is that with this object you can on the top you can access all the functions inside the dog class, but by writing this you can only access those functions in the dog class which are implemented from the animal interface. You can write a dot eat, fine. You can write a dot move, but you cannot write a dot bark. You will not get that function. You will get an error out here. Okay, so the bark function out here will actually not be available. So this way you can only access those functions which are coming from the animal interface but are implemented in the dog interface. So you cannot actually access the functions which are only for the only for the dog class, right? For example, the function bark. Fine. Now, how this is useful in Selenium? Okay. Now let's make a new class. I'll show you a diagram in some time, Ashish. I'll tell you. Let's make a browser. Selenium. We know that WebDriver is the interface. and all the classes, Chromedriver, Firefox driver, IDE driver, and all these are implementing that interface. So you can write like this as well: WebDriver driver equals to new Firefox driver, or can write say similarly you can write WebDriver driver 2 equals to new Internet Explorer driver. Fine. Or you can also write like this, that WebDriver driver 3 equals to new Chromedriver. So using this, what I am trying to tell you is that you can use all the functions, only the functions which are implemented in the Firefox IE and Chromedriver, okay, from the WebDriver interface. Now, why is this helpful? Generally, most of the times we do it like this. Why do we do it like this? Okay, now suppose if I come back to the previous example, I am reading, suppose I am reading a variable over here called string called browser type equals to say I. Later on we will be reading this browser type variable from an Excel file and all. So after reading the type of browser on which you have to do the testing, okay, you need to launch that type of browser only. If I am creating the objects of the classes independently, like Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver equals to new Internet Explorer, how can I proceed further? There is a deadlock over here, okay, but in this case you read the browser from an external source like this, string browser type equals to null, equals to say Mozilla. You read it from an Excel file or an XML file, wherever you have to read it from, okay, and then you initialize your WebDriver object. You write over here WebDriver driver equals to null. Keep it null in the beginning, that this interface reference is not pointing to any of these three objects, and then you keep an if statement, that if the browser type is equal to Mozilla, in that case go ahead and initialize driver to new Firefox driver, okay, else if the browser type is equal to say I, then initialize driver to new Internet Explorer driver, like this, okay, and else is right like this, else if same thing browser types equals to Chrome, then initialize the driver to Chromedriver. So what we will do is, out here I'll just read the browser type from an external source, I keep WebDriver to null, and depending on the browser type I'll initialize my driver object. And after that, after initializing, you can write simple command driver.get. In the end, you can give the URL name and you can keep on testing. You can continue testing on that particular driver. Fine. So dynamically, I can change the browser on which I want to test on. Fine. Right. And in the end, after initializing the driver, you can fire the same functions because all the drivers are implementing the same interface. So this is why we use it like this. We don't write Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver or Chrome driver equals to new Chrome driver. One reference, okay, can be dynamically pointed towards different drivers depending on the browser name supplied, and you can go to a website and you can do anything. I hope this point is clear to everybody. If you have questions, please feel to ask me, right? Now regarding Ashish, your question that can you explain the architecture of WebDriver, it will be able to understand. That's what the architecture of WebDriver is. That's what I'm explaining you. In WebDriver architecture, Suraj, I'll come back to you. In WebDriver architecture, WebDriver is an interface. Okay, so that's what I'll be explaining you as we proceed with the course, because in the architecture of WebDriver there are so many classes and interfaces. Okay, the main interface is the WebDriver interface itself, and all the classes, Android driver, Android WebDriver, Chrome driver, Firefox driver, all these classes, they are implementing the WebDriver interface. This is the starting point of the architecture, right? After that, we will come over to another interface known as, will come out in some time, known as the web element interface. Okay, so as we proceed, gradually you will come to know the architecture as well, but the whole thing, it starts with the WebDriver interface. The whole story starts from here, right? Now, okay, just a minute, Suraj, let's ask. I don't understand the relation between first three declarations and the later part. As in the later part of the code, we are choosing which driver to use. This thing out here has got nothing to do with the below part. Okay, I can also comment it out. This thing, Suresh, has got nothing to do. This thing was just a simple example to tell you, right? So actually this is the real thing out here. Okay, so right, and another question is, Satish, I have a question relating to Chromedriver. Do you have to set the logging? Do you have to set the path for Chromedriver logging, or it is automatically set up? The Chromedriver logs, they are generated under the project itself. If I refresh the project, they are actually generated over here. Chromedriver log. It is automatically inside the project. I guess you can set the path as well. I never tried setting it. I always let it come under the project itself. Okay. This is the Chromedriver log file. Right? Yeah. So now, okay, question is, do we get the log for Internet Explorer and Firefox? No, default logs are not present. You need to use the log4j API in Java for that. Okay, the log file is automatically generated for Chromedriver, but later on we'll see how to generate the log files. Okay, we will use the log4j API in Java and we'll generate it. Okay, we'll see that. Okay. Now, right, this is done. Okay. So log4j API is a logging API in Java which helps you to generate the log files and all everything. Okay, it's quite easy. It's not a big deal to use it. So I'll tell you. I'll explain you about it. Fine. So let me explain you about something else right now. Does anybody do you know about Firefox profiling concept? Do you guys know about Firefox profiling concept? Okay, I think majority of the people are typing no out here. Okay, so I'll tell you what, when you create, I'll create a new class called profiling.java. Whenever I write new Firefox, suppose this is my regular Firefox window. Okay, this Firefox window has got my own set of bookmarks. It's got my own set of add-ons, like the Yahoo Messenger add-on is installed over here. Some add-ons are over here as well. I've got a Firebug inside my Firefox window. Okay, so the settings are as per me. Fine. Now suppose this machine is supposed to be used, the one which I am using is supposed to be shared by me and one of my friends. Alright, just taking an example. Now I want that when I open Firefox, I should be able to see the Firefox settings or the Firefox bookmarks which I want. Fine. When my friend opens the Firefox window, he wants that only his set of bookmarks should be available. His set of add-ons should be available. Fine. So this is possible in Selenium. You can create, sorry, not in Selenium, in Firefox. You can create multiple instances of Firefox on your PC. For example, in Selenium, when I start a Firefox, if I write over here new Firefox driver, like this, and I run this, a blank Firefox will be opened by Selenium. Fine, hold on. A blank Firefox window will be opened. Okay, now if you observe carefully, this blank Firefox window will not have any set of bookmarks which were there earlier on the Firefox which I have on my system. It's got no add-ons, nothing except this Skype add-on. I don't know how it's coming, maybe because of some Skype thing. But it's not got anything. Neither the Firebug and all. It's like a fresh Firefox window which is opening. Now this is because whenever Selenium opens up a Firefox window, it creates its own Firefox profile and it opens it. How do you create a Firefox profile? I'll just tell you. You just go to File and you go to Exit menu from here. Close Firefox. The first step is close Firefox from File Exit. Then go to your Run and give the command firefox.exe-p profile manager. Give this command. You'll see a window like this coming up. Okay, I'll give this command to everyone over the WebEx chat. Fine. Now this Firefox window over here, okay, you can click on the create profile button out here and create a new profile called, I'll create a profile called test. Finish. So when I start this test profile, it will be like a fresh Firefox window starting up. Okay, it will not have any cache history from the previous Firefox. Okay, it will not have any bookmarks and all, so it can be customized as per me. So this is the profile concept. You close Firefox from File Exit, open the Run menu, Windows Run, and run it. So right now on my machine there are 3 profiles: default, temp, and test. Similarly, when Selenium starts a Firefox window, it creates its own profile, starts it, and in the end it destroys that particular profile. Okay, so if I run this program 10 times, a new Firefox window will open up 10 times, and every time a new Firefox profile will be created. Okay, now why is this profiling needed in Selenium? Because sometimes you need to test HTTPS websites and you have got security certificate errors coming up. That can be handled in Firefox very easily with the profile. Sometimes you have to do some proxy settings in your test to connect to some proxy server and all. So you can create a Firefox profile yourself. For example, the one like I created a Firefox profile named test. Fine. And in that test Firefox profile, you can set the proxy settings in the Firefox window just for that particular profile, and you can use it. Right? And you can instruct Selenium that don't open a Firefox profile or don't create a Firefox profile on behalf of your site. Open a Firefox which I want to, or with the Firefox profile which I have created. For example, I can instruct Selenium to open up this test profile. Okay. Now this test Firefox profile. Suppose in this I go to Google and I bookmark the Google page. Okay. Now when I will instruct Selenium to open this particular Firefox profile, in that profile I will see Google as a bookmark. Right. To do that, you have an inbuilt class called profiles ini. You write profiles ini prof equals to new profiles ini. Now this profiles ini class out here is an inbuilt class which represents all the profiles which are present on your system. Okay, all the Firefox profiles which are present on your system are represented by the profiles ini class. Okay, so if I write profile dot get profile, from this object get the profile test, I will get the test profile present in my system. It's very simple. And there's an internal class called Firefox profile. Everything in Selenium is inbuilt. Okay, you just have to learn how to use it. So there's an inbuilt class called Firefox profile. You get the object of that by writing profile.getProfileTest. So this is the object of the Firefox profile class, and you keep the class object in Firefox driver when you create the object like this. You write new Firefox and pass over the object myProf, which is actually pointing to the test profile. So when you run this code, a Firefox window will open up, but that window will actually be my test profile. So if you look at this, see, Google bookmark is there. Right? What is the profile test? This is the profile which I created. This is the test profile, right, which I created. I am opening this particular profile with my Firefox. Sorry, are you getting my point? So you can instruct. This will be helpful later on when we study about HTTPS testing and all. So out there I will be using the Firefox profile only. Okay, if you have to set the proxy settings and all while testing, sometimes you need to connect to a proxy server and then do the testing and all. So instead of keeping the proxy settings in the default Firefox browser, you can create a profile. In that profile you can keep all the proxy settings and you can launch that profile every time, right? So the crux is, in Firefox you can have multiple instances of Firefox running on the same machine. Okay, this thing is not there in Chrome or IE, it's only there in Firefox. Okay, so now let's do one thing.